So Genesis 32, 22 through 32 is where we will be. Well, some of them have been, or we know that Saturday at 3 will be the funeral here. Yep. Okay. All right. So, a little introductory stuff. If you did not get an outline, there are outlines in the back. So, if you would like one, do that. And sometimes I stick to the outline. Most times I stray a little bit. But you'll have that. So, life can be tough, right? How is life tough? What about life? So we've been out of it for almost 2 months now. So you guys should be just chomping at the bit to share your wisdom. Finances. I didn't have that down here, but boy, that should have been absolutely. Okay, financial stuff. Yeah, absolutely. All right. What else? Life's unpredictable. Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah, we like to think it's predictable, and but we things come about perhaps every day that let us know it's not. What else? Health issues. Yeah, absolutely. Health issues. Yeah, make life tough. Either our own or loved ones. Or yeah. Okay. Interruptions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Life interruptions in life. Most of us like that day to go as we've, if you keep a to-do list, you write that down, and you don't like for interruptions to happen in that. So yeah, good. Other things. Marriage. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I've got that one down here. Actually, you have an argument with a spouse, other family member, or a friend. I'll be honest, I had argument with a spouse, but I thought I'd better put family member or friend in there too. But yeah, so marriage can be tough. Can be that as you indicated, the roller coaster ride or the okay. Just okay, absolutely. Living day to day can be overwhelming in the things that we have to face. Peer pressure, keeping up with the Joneses, absolutely. Yeah. That's was that us, Robbie? We were talking one time where it's different. I can't remember now if we were talking after we ran, but where keeping up with the Joneses used to be just the neighbors right? Remember? But now it's virtual. It's keeping up with the Joneses that are on your social media feed, huh? Yeah, you don't have any idea what they're posting is legitimate either. I'm sorry. Yeah, people you don't even know trying to keep up. Absolutely. Yeah. Other things. Anybody ever have to find energy to deal with a child instead of handing them a phone or some sort of so I was keeping the boys one morning, and I was there early before they got up. And anyway, Wesson was the first one up, and he walks in and he wanted his tablet. They have the little tablets, and so I was like, well, let's eat some breakfast, whatever. Well, I want my tablet. I said, I get you. That's all that stuff. And so he went and got it, and he tries to turn on, and his parents had forgot to charge his tablet. So yes. So it's a little challenging there for yeah, exactly. Maybe they didn't forget to charge their tablets. Exactly. So yeah, doing that, very good. Starting school, there was some anxieties and life being tough for a while when people when South Point was no longer, but just starting school. If you're today, with the students, Weston started 4K today, so he's yeah. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. So yesterday, I sent Robbie Caldwell yesterday. Shelby sat him down and was explaining what school is and why you go to school, and school can help prepare you for what you want to do in life and all that stuff. And then they got to the conversation of what they wanted to do in life, and she was thinking that he was going to say be a firefighter like his dad, but he wants to be Dabo. So, if I live long enough, I'm pretty pleased if he that'd be awful nice. No, but anyway, so yeah, all right. Yeah, I think he had a really good day. So, yeah, so very good. So sometimes we try and avoid the difficulties in life, right? Some difficulties in life we can't avoid. If we have health problems, it's kind of hard to. But then let me ask it in question form, because I think that's fair. Because until you've walked in someone's shoes, I think it's fair to say you don't know how you would react. But do you think some people are can we learn from the difficulties in life? Let me ask it that way. Okay, so most people are shaking their head. All right, but a lot of times we don't want to do that, right? Is that a fair assessment? I'll point fingers here that we don't want to. That when the difficulties come, how do we handle them? A lot of times, I mean, just some. Okay, so ignore them. Yeah, pretend they're not there. Yeah, okay. What else? When you go through a difficult time, maybe if you're going through a difficult time in your marriage, or you're going through a difficult time physically, health-wise, how sometimes do we handle those? Fear, absolutely. We're afraid and fearful of why and what may happen. Okay. Pray. Well, give the church answer. Wow. Okay. But no. Pray is a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. How else? Right. Yeah. Yeah, good. Do any of us, when difficult times happen, and that's do any of us sit in it wondering, either what's God trying to teach me, or what can I learn from this situation? Does anybody ever, a difficult? Okay, yeah. See, I think that is based with the passage we're looking at. What can be when difficult things arise, as I've given you here. If we refuse to give up and continue to wrestle with life's challenges, this passage, what I'm going to read here in a moment, lets us know that we can find God, okay, because that's what happens to Jacob, and our lives are changed for the better. Now, some of us may think, been through some stuff, and I agree with you that it's hard to have a life lesson, that you think you're better as a result of that. But so, all right, Genesis 32, 22 through 32 is when, as I've already indicated, when Jacob wrestles with God. All right, he goes through a transformation. All right, his name is changed to, it's in front of you, to Israel. Thank you. His name is changed to Israel, and he shows us what can happen when we persevere, when we have faith, and that can bring about divine blessings. So let me read that. Let's jump into verse 22. That night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Then the sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and as he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. So let's get some background stuff. What's happened? Tell me the Jacob story. What's happened? Why is Jacob where he is right now? You remember? He ran away. Why did he run away? Who told him to run away? Let's go back to that. Let's go back. I've given you that reference in here. Chapter 27, verses, 41 through 45. Okay, 41. Esau, who is Esau? What kind of brother? His twin brother. Some might say Jacob was a little evil too, but yes. All right, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Okay, so Jacob tricks him. We won't go into all the story, but Jacob tricks Esau, gets the blessing. Esau wants to kill him. You know, as I'm reading that, and every time I read that, sometimes I chuckle inside myself. You think Esau forgot? You know, she's like, let him calm down. Let him forget about it. I can think of, you know, those of us who have siblings, you know, you do something, you wrong them, right? That memory can be quite long, right? Okay, so Jacob now finds himself returning, okay? He's returning after being gone for quite a period of time. But he still faces, in fact, if we were to continue to read, he meets Esau eventually. So he still faces imminent danger. He still faces the threat of death by his brother Esau, okay? So he brings his family, they cross over, and then he comes back, and what do you think he's doing? So when I read here, he says, that night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions, so Jacob was left alone. I'm going to stop right there. What do you think he's doing? Okay, so he's maybe speculating, I don't really know if I want to do this. All right, what else? What do you think? Okay, yep. Right. 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 Yeah. Exactly. So, go ahead. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who else? Uh-huh. Yeah, I think he's protecting his family too. Right. Right. Boy, would that be tough? Nobody, please don't answer that question. But yeah, so absolutely. And he keeps sending, hoping all these things. So he gets to this point, and I think he's continuing to not necessarily want to go through what he's been, to trying to protect what he's done, but to what he has, to what he could face and protect himself. So Esau's memory maybe not fade, but time tends to heal. But I also wonder, anyway, because of what happens right after that, if he's not struggling with himself as well. Why would I say that? Mm-hmm. 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 On both sides. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. And sometimes when we think about going to God, how do we think that's going to happen? You mentioned prayer, right? So when we think about, okay, God, I've messed up. I'm not real. I've created some of this situation, if not a lot of this situation, meaning Jacob. So how do we, when we finally take to God, what do we think is going to happen? Okay, an instant miracle, right? God's going to, make Esau forget, pacify Laban. They're going to, so yeah, the instant miracle, all right? Are there other things? How many of us, when we start to take something to God, I don't know if like's the right word, but even consider that we're going to spend a certain amount of time wrestling with God over the situation? Yeah, I don't either. But that's exactly what happens, right? I mean, it's a physical, but it's also a spiritual, right? He's not just physically wrestling with God. He's wrestling with God spiritually and over the things that have happened. Okay, so the wrestling encounter, as I've got it listed here. Jacob wrestles with, I've already played my card, with a mysterious figure. Some say angel of the Lord, some say a spirit or a divine being. I think it's, my opinion is he's wrestling with God. And I think the majority, at least that I've read, would agree with that. So, all right, he starts wrestling with God. Why is it at night? What can be the significance of it being at night? Throw them at me. Say it again. Okay, could be a dream, maybe, perhaps. Why else would it be at night? What? Okay, so maybe no one else could see it. Why else might we be it be at nighttime? Okay, so he's not doing anything else. What? Yeah. See, I think night is both physical and spiritual, right? I think he's going through a dark period, and I think that's indicative of that he's wrestling with God at night. He's wrestling with God during a dark time in his life. Okay. Here's the good news. Good things can happen as a result of that. Here's the bad news. You don't come out unscathed. And see, I think with that miraculous thing, Andy, when we're talking about that instant miracle or God just to take it, and I'm not saying God can't do that. God can do whatever God chooses to do, but it's been my experience in life, and I think a lot of people's experience in life, that when we've, caused some, and when we've had some difficult times, that when we wrestle with God, there's some, injuries, not necessarily physical, but, there's some things that we come out of that, and as I said before, we don't come out unscathed. All right. So I've given you, it is a huge, a profound, as I've written there, metaphor for the life of faith. So here's the thing. A lot of times, and keeping going in the thing, a lot of times we think that we're supposed to, let me be careful. Well, I'll just say it. We're amongst friends. So we think that we're supposed to agree with God on everything. We're supposed to be submissive, as I've gotten here. And, basically if God says it, we're supposed to do it, those types of things. This gives an indication that it's okay to struggle with God, in my opinion. That it's okay to question God. That it's okay to say, I'm not letting you go. You're gonna give me that blessing. You're gonna help me through this situation, that type of thing. So I think when we consider the life of faith, that genuine faith grapples with our faith. Sometimes even questions. Anybody ever question their faith? Okay, sure. Does that unnerve some people? See, when I was growing up, my parents certainly were okay with that. But I can remember people in church saying you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't question God. Well, you shouldn't question your faith and those types of things. And I just I've just not found that to be true in my faith walk. Now maybe I'm weird, or you agree with what 100%? Okay. Okay. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes me think of a time. The church I came from, we were studying Lee Strobel's "The Case for Christ." Anybody? Wonderful little book. And it's just, he goes out and interviews people. It's kind of neat what how he went about that, because Strobel was an atheist, and I'm sure y'all know the story, but he went out to disprove God, and he was the Chicago Tribune, I think, or Chicago Sun. Anyway, he was a reporter for them, and went out to interview people, and was trying to disprove, and through his interviews became a Christian, became a person of faith. But we studied that, and it's very apologetic. It's very nuts and bolts. This is why you believe what you believe. And there was a guy in the congregation after we finished the study. He said, this was a really good study. He goes, I've really enjoyed this study. He said, but we call it faith for a reason. And his point was, even though you can cross all the T's and dot all the I's, it's in here. It can make sense up here, but if you don't feel it in here and have faith that God is who God says He is, and Jesus did what Jesus said, then all the there has to be that aha moment, right? There has to be that moment where you believe and where you have faith, and somebody laying it out might help that moment, but it's not necessarily going to cause it. And I think that by definition, faith is, what is the biblical definition of faith? Do we know? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can't see them. It's something that we just have to believe in. It's something that we have, I'm sorry to use the word, but faith in. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, God's big enough. That's usually my statement, is God's big enough for us to question. And I think, and what if you didn't hear, Robin said that sometimes when we question our faith, we come out the other side stronger, and that's indicative of what Jacob happens with Jacob as well. Okay. All right. Other comments? Hmm. Right. So, go ahead. Yeah. So I think literally in this case, but also spiritually, Jacob was struggling with God, and I think it gives us an example, or a metaphor, if you will, for the life of faith, that we're going to struggle. In fact, I would offer to you that when you are struggling, you can come back to this story and say, Jacob wrestled with God. And when we struggle, that's not necessarily a lack of faith, or even a bad thing, because by what happened to Jacob, he's coming through the other side stronger. So I think we're supposed to see the struggle, and realize again that we're going to have similar struggles as well. Yeah. And that we will. Oh, absolutely. You can't stop with the struggle part. God brings him through. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Churches, right? Right. Right. Mm. Right. And others may disagree. God's in the struggle with us. You know. Yeah. Okay. So, what is and we've answered some of it, I think. But what is the purpose of struggle? Why do we struggle? Okay, so one is the way we grow. All right, that's how we grow. And it truly is. I mean, think of other things in life. You know, I mean, if you're into athletics, think of that. I mean, you tear a muscle down to do what? Build it back up. You don't need to joke. Yeah. So, and it doesn't have to be athletics. I mean, and other stuff too. Um, we talked about going back to school. You struggle. Some of the times, your biggest struggles in school end up, or the teachers who caused you the biggest struggles end up being some of the teachers you look back on and think they were the better teachers I had. You weren't thinking that when you were going through the class, or I wasn't. But you think, you look back and think they prepared you for life better than some of the others that you might have liked while you were going through it. Okay. Why else do we struggle?
First year I did the Brotherhood, I used a discussion lesson from Dennis Swansburg.
Mm-hmm.
And the theme was for men that iron sharpens iron.
Correct.
Struggles are going to happen.
That's right.
They're not going to go away. And through that, this metaphor of iron sharpens iron was very, very, descriptive, but really made sense of the struggle that all people will go through, and
Right.
kind of what it takes to persevere and keep going with what you're trying to do.
Right.
It's still back there in the library, by the way. I know
Mm-hmm.
the other day somebody ever wants to still look at it.
Yes. Very good. Yeah. So I think so, and I think that one of the things that we see and can learn from this is, what if? Let me put it this way: what if when we're going through a hard time, we do what Jacob did? See, Jacob could have ended the struggle by doing what? Let go. Right? He could have ended the struggle by letting go. Yeah. Or if we put it in wrestling terms, yeah, absolutely. He could have ended it by tapping out. All right? But he didn't. Why didn't he? Okay, so one would be, to prove that he could do it. Why, what, so verse 26. Then the man said, we'll say God said, let me go, for it is daybreak. He could have ended the struggle right there, right? By just letting go, okay? They're still struggling. What does Jacob say? I will not let you go. So here, maybe we can rephrase that. I'm not ending this fight. I'm not ending this struggle, right, until you bless me. What if we sit in life struggles like that? Easier said than done. Please understand that. But what if we sit in the struggle and say, you know what, God, teach me. You know what, God, I'm going to learn something from this. I'm not going to go through this without some sort of blessing. Does that mean the whole thing is rosy and great and those type? No, absolutely not. But what if we sat in life struggles in that way? Would that change us in any way, or do we sit in life struggles in that way? Or we just don't want to struggle? Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, I didn't mean to, go ahead. Did I interrupt you? Okay. Yeah. It said, Camille said that Jacob was brazen with God. Absolutely. So, guys, it is okay to ask God the tough questions. It's okay not to let go. It's okay to say, you know, you're going to teach me. If I'm going to go through this, you're going to teach me something. You know, Jacob tells us that. And I get it. We're not taught that. We're taught to go to God and pray to God in certain ways. Read through the Psalms. David was brazen with God at some points, right? But he always got around to, at least the times I've read through the 150, he always got around to seeing God in the situation. I mean, David would start out, just wipe them off the face of the earth. I don't want to deal with them. They're my enemies. God, if you love me, take care of those people, right? And somehow he would always come through when those type of things didn't happen and see where God was right and God blessed him, even though God didn't give him exactly what he wanted. Okay? And I think the same thing with Jacob. Jacob's like, I'm not letting go. It's not happening. I'm not doing it. You are going to bless me. Okay? And he holds on until what happens? That's right. He says, your name's not going to be Jacob anymore. Your name's going to be what? Israel, which means you have, guys, listen to this. This is a biblical story, right? I'm not making this up, okay? But because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome, right? You have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. Okay. Now, the covenant relationship enters into that, right? For God and God's people in Israel. Okay. But he is right now specifically talking to Jacob and telling him, you've struggled. And you've struggled with Almighty God, with me, him, God, and with humans. And you didn't give up. And you sat in the struggle. You fought in the struggle is what Jacob did, okay? Right? And I'm going to rename you because you overcame it. Okay. Thoughts on that, if any? Why do you think Jacob wants to know his name? Because he just wanted to know who he was fighting? Why do you think? He says, why do you, Jacob says, please tell me your name. Why do you ask me my name? Then he blessed him there. Okay, why do you think Jacob wanted to know his name? Yeah, see, I think exactly, and he wanted to know who he was struggling with. So he's struggling physically, right? Okay, we on the outside looking in, we're sort of hovering over. We know the rest of the story, and all of a sudden Jacob hears, because you've struggled with God, and all of a sudden Jacob's like, wait a minute, who are you? Right? Who are you? Now God doesn't. Go ahead. Where are you? Okay. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Who has that power? Right. Who has that power? That's right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Who who can do such a thing? Yeah. Yeah. I think interesting too within that same verse is that they were wrestling and Jacob was winning. Or at least the man, God, couldn't overpower him. I know what we like to say, God could have overpowered him if he wanted to. Which, okay, I get it. But Jacob was not giving up. And there are situations where we keep fighting and we keep fighting and we keep fighting, and God's got to do what? See, we don't like to think of these things. Or I don't, but I need them. We keep fighting it, and it doesn't have to, it's certainly not physical, but a spiritual fight. We're right. We're going to stay in it. We're going to keep struggling. And what does God have to do? Show us that he's boss. bring closure, put us in our place. I get it. And you guys have heard enough sermons to where, I go on the other side most of the time. I own that. But this is God too, and God says, all right, you're not giving. I'm gonna help you. Right? And there are times when we struggle with God, because what happens? Let me ask you that first. What happens when God touches his hip and knocks it out of joint? What happens? What do we tell happens to Jacob later? How does he come out of this? When the sun rose, verse 31, he's limping away. You can almost see it as a cartoon, right? He is never the same. He is never the same, okay? He will have those scars. Those scars aren't necessarily a bad thing, okay? He will have those scars. Would he have preferred not to have them? Well, sure, who wants to limp through life? But perhaps part of this story is it's better to limp through life with God and have been blessed by God than it is never to have struggled in that way without God. Okay? Because we struggle with God, God is going to change us, and I think that's a reason for the struggle and a reason for the story. God is going to change us, and we're going to be better for it, but that does not mean we're going to be perfect, nor does that mean we're not going to have scars from it. Okay? Because Jacob does. Right? That's exactly right. Mm. Right. Absolutely. No, I think so. I think it's yet another reminder. What you reminded me of, and I think I'd given it to you in the outline too, is Jacob's prayer prior to this. See, Jacob remembered in his prayer the things that God had done for him and the things God was calling him to do. And I think this is yet another, with the task that's going to be before Israel, as you just said. I think that this is yet another reminder of what he can do with God. And so his prayer, if you chapter 32, verses 9 through 12. Then Jacob prayed, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you who said to me, go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. Okay, so he's fallen back on the promises that God has made to him. So again, we talked about all that life brings to us. He's praying this prayer, and the next scene or two after that, he's struggling with the very God that he prayed to. Okay. And as a result, comes out of it with God's blessing, but also with the scars that can happen. I think that other things that perhaps weren't brought, I gave you a little thing at the end. You can read that on your own. Anything else as we close? I was trying to think if there's stuff. Yeah, I'll go. Let's go over the application part. Jacob's story encourages believers to God with persistence, with honesty and humility, trusting that struggle and prayer can lead to transformation and blessing. Okay. It also reminds us that divine encounters may leave lasting marks, both physically and spiritually, shaping identity and our purpose. Okay. Genesis, the passage we've read, is a narrative of faith, struggle, and blessing portraying Jacob's transition from a fearful, scheming man to Israel, a figure of perseverance and covenantal promise. Okay. So if you think God can't make something of you, you know, he did Jacob, did David. I mean, the examples are limitless. And finally, it serves as a timeless model for engaging with God through life's challenges. Comments, questions? Thank you, all of you, for your participation. Mm. Come back to God later. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you referring to yourself when you wrote years ago? I wrote a poem that included this.
No, it's I gave credit at the end.
Oh, I didn't.
Alexandra L.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't read part of it.
Yeah. I probably should have limited that at the first. Put her name at the first, but I listed her at the end. All right. Well, let's close in prayer if there's nothing else, and then we will adjourn for the evening. Bow with me. God, we thank you for most of all your presence here. God, we know that life does bring struggles. We pray that you are there with us, that you will help us to learn from them and help us to be better as a result of them. Thank you for this example within our Holy Scriptures. Be with each person here as we leave. Continue to help us all seek to serve you the best we can and to do so in Christ's name. Amen.